Hi there and welcome to Tough But True, where we look at some of the things that Jesus said that seem to be quite tough, but they're always true. I was caught this week about looking at what Jesus says about the Sabbath. And there was this encounter where the Pharisees and they were trying to say to the disciples that they were doing something wrong because they were eating grain on the Sabbath. And you can find this in the end of Mark chapter 2. And it just reads a little bit like this. So it says, one Sabbath he was going through the grain fields, and as they made their way across, the disciples, they began to eat grains. And then it was the Pharisees that saw them and said, look what they're doing. It's not lawful to do that on the Sabbath. And Jesus heard them and he said to them, have you not read what David did? When he was in need and was hungry, he and those who were with him, they entered the house of God, and they ate bread in the holy place, which is not lawful for any but for the priest to eat. And they also gave it to those who were with them. And then Jesus said this. He said, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord of even the Sabbath. Now that is encouraging, but it also is challenging as well, because we know the great principle of taking rest. And, God made the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh day. And that model is great for us, that we need to rest. I remember when we first moved up to Blackpool to try and coordinate our mission training centre, God clearly led us to this. We were promoting a 24/7 discipleship lifestyle, and he said, no, you're commanded to work 24/6. But what's really interesting, I think, in this passage, and what leaps out of it to me, is that when God made this rule of keeping the Sabbath holy, it was because we cannot operate in a 24/7 mentality. We need to rest. And we need to take time out to recharge ourselves and refresh ourselves. And what Jesus says here is that you don't know better than this. You cannot work 7 days a week and just go non-stop without burning out. You need to rest. And God created the Sabbath not as an act of obedience for us to have it drummed down our throat that we must rest on this day and dare you do anything that will legally go against that. That you need that rest, that you need that time out to be refreshed and to be fit for ministry and purpose. Jesus knew that these disciples, when they were walking across the grain fields, needed food. They were tired and they were hungry, and they did what the Pharisees seemed to think was unlawful, just to eat and sustain themselves. But here was Jesus saying, that's okay, because the Sabbath is made for man, that we need to rest when we need to rest. But the idea that we go into this rigid timetable of stopping out of discipline rather than necessity makes it a legalistic thing. It's really been a struggle for many to understand when our day of rest was. Sunday. I grew up in Christian ministry. Many people, I think, will agree with me that this idea that Sunday was our day of rest didn't make sense for those working in Christian ministry, whether it was travelling out to one of the 13 churches that I was preaching at the time, or preparing for sermons, or organising the youth group. I think when I grew up, my programme for Sundays was Sunday school and running that in the mornings, maybe some time out in the afternoon and evening service sometimes, and then straight on to youth group, and it would be 10:30 at night when we might disappear off to pub quiz to do relaxing. That wasn't a great model for a day of rest, but that was the time out. Saturdays were also a working day with a football club to run and all sorts of activities going on. So I needed to realise that my Sabbath rest, the way that I could become refreshed, was not just to do nothing on a day, but to find Jesus and to take that time out to rest in him I know that if I want to be fit for ministry and useful in that time, I need to be alone with Jesus and nobody else. I'm an introvert myself. I don't get energy from being around people. I need to be alone with Jesus, just allowing him to restore me, revive me, and refresh me. But that can happen when I need it. I need to take time out at least once a week just to encounter him. Whether that happens on a Sunday, a Saturday, a Friday, whatever. We try and make that day on a Saturday here to take that time out, but it's for my benefit and my purpose. You see, a lot of people struggle with the legal aspect of some aspects of Christianity. They say that God is makes all these ridiculous rules that we can't possibly obey, but I often realize that these are for my benefit, my purpose. I remember growing up, it's like God said don't drink too much. There's verses in scripture that says don't get drunk. People that have had a hangover will realize that is wise advice, not just something that is a rule that we shouldn't do. Very few people have good hangovers, and so that is a rule that is for the benefit of us, because God knows the consequences of getting absolutely drunk and the way it destroys us. Think of the top 10, the 10 commandments that God gave. Everyone is for our benefit. The harm and the pain that is caused by committing adultery or stealing or lying, it's all a consequence that causes pain. And by not doing these things, it enables us to live a more full life. These rules, these commands, these things that Jesus asks us to do are for our benefit and help us. And when we do these things, we feel or know that we are doing okay and it's good for us. He came to give us life and life to the full. And just because that comes with very helpful instructions, that is still a life worth living. So when he says, keep that Sabbath holy, take rest, remember that that's for our benefit, not because he likes to make lots of rules. He knows what we can do and what is good for us, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. We enjoy our rest. We don't rest just for the sake of being good. We rest because we need to be refreshed. And in that Sabbath, that's where Jesus can meet us to restore us, revive us, and refresh us. The Sabbath is made for man, not man for the Sabbath. That sounds tough, but it's definitely true.
Awake my soul, awake my soul, arise and bless your name.